Hello, story friends. Miz Lizzie from the Hedberg Public Library, here with Yoga Story Play. I'm going to share some story stretches with you, then tell you a story, and then give you some ideas for some creative play related to the story at home. So let's get started. First, you need to find a place on the floor where you have enough room around you. You are not going to bump into anybody or anything. Plant your feet on the ground. Let's bring our palms together at our heart center. And we'll take a great big breath in, bringing our hands up above our head. So filling up our bellies with air, breathing in, and then breathing out as we bring our hands back to our hearts. Let's do that together one more time. Great big breath in. And breathing out. Now let's keep those feet planted firm on the ground. Reach your hands up high, tall like a mountain. And once you got yourself as tall as you can get with your fingertips up, make yourself even taller up on your tippy toes. Tips of your fingers, are they tickling the clouds? Tickle the clouds with the tips of your fingertips. And then the rain comes down. Let's bring the rain all the way down to the ground. And now let's bring the sun out. Put your fingertips together. A big round sun beaming out. And it's such a beautiful day today. Let's go for a horseback ride. Bring your legs wide like you're on a horse. You ready? Let's go riding. Woohoo! Good job. And bring that back up. Feet together. We're going to go ahead and we're going to shoot some bows and arrows. One foot in front, another behind as an anchor. That front foot, let's just bend into it. Bring your hands up. One like you've got an arrow and you're going to shoot it out. Let it go. Did it get its target? Let's try the other side. Bend that front leg. Anchor yourself with your back leg. Front arm, ready to shoot the arrow. Shoot your target. Good job. All right, let's try flying like superheroes again. So we're going to put that one leg, this time it's pretty straight, just a little bit of a bounce in your knee. Put all your weight on that front leg as you bend forward and lift your back leg. Lift your front, both your arms forward. Are you flying? Woo! What superhero are you? Think about which superhero you want to be. Maybe you're making up your very own. Try it on the other side. See if you can fly with both legs. All your weight onto your front. Lifting up. Flying out. Nice job. Now let's get wide as we can, bright and shining like a star. And we know we're a star because we have 5 points. Remember? Let's count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5-pointed star. Stretch all the way out, and then let's bring it all the way in. Give yourself a big hug. Squeeze all the way, tight as you can. Tight, 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 tight. And let it go. Shake it all out. Shake it out. Ooh. All right, let's start with some stories. Crisscross applesauce. Find yourself a place on the floor where you are comfortable and you have room to sit without bothering anyone else. So I'm going to tell you a story, and that means you have to help me create the story in your own minds and imaginations. So let's open our eyes, let's open our ears, and let's open our imaginations. Did you know that some tulips have a perfume, a beautiful odor? I didn't know that for many years until quite recently, because mostly tulips are grown and cultivated for their beautiful colored bulbs and sometimes the design of the petals. But some have a beautiful aroma. And this story is a little bit about why maybe they have that aroma. It's a legend from Devon, England. Long ago, in Devon, they say there lived an old woman who lived all alone in a tiny little cottage. Now, she didn't have much, but one thing she loved was flowers. So when she had enough money, she would buy tulip bulbs. And over the years, she had gotten so many tulip bulbs planted that her entire garden, all around her house, every spring, tulips. Nothing but tulips. They were so beautiful. And the old woman was not the only one who enjoyed those tulips. Just across the way in an old meadow, there lived pixies, the fairy folk. And they loved tulips, especially that old woman's tulips. As soon as spring came and the tulips came up and the blossoms just started to open, the pixies knew it was time for their celebrations. So every night, just as the sun was going down at dusk, they would fly their little pixie babies over to the old woman's tulips and put one each in a little tulip blossom to hold and bob back and forth in the wind and put those babies to sleep. And then those grown-up pixies would fly back to the meadow where there was a fairy ring, and they would dance all night long. Now the old woman had a hard time sleeping, as sometimes happens when you get older. And she got up once very early, and she saw the twinkling lights of those pixies flying back in the early morning, just as the sun was coming up, and collecting their little pixie babies from those tulips and flying on home again. And from that time on, that old woman made a habit of sitting in her rocker on her porch just as the sun was going down at night. And she'd be so quiet and still, the pixies wouldn't even notice her as they flew in and deposited their babies in those tulips. And then she would sleep, lulled to sleep along with those pixies' babies, until the pixies came back in the morning, just as the sun was coming up, and the old woman would see them come and collect their babies and fly back to their homes. Well, knowing that those tulips were pixie cradles, that old woman took even more special care of her tulips, and she never, ever cut a single one of them. And in return, those pixies made sure those tulips lasted longer than any tulip had ever been known to last. Why, they would come up in the spring and they would last all summer long until the early days of autumn. And what's more, every single one of those tulips had a beautiful perfume. Ah, just the smell of them as the old woman sat in her rocker on the porch would send her drifting off to beautiful rosy dreams, along with those pixie babies. Well, time passed, and the old woman eventually died. And her cottage was sold to a young couple. And when they moved in, well, they had no use for flowers. They thought them impractical. And so they dug up every single one of those tulip bulbs. They wanted to plant practical things like vegetables. And they started with a bed of parsley. And that was the first thing that came up that next spring. And when the pixies flew over with their babies at dusk, ready for their celebrations to dance in the fairy circles, and found nothing but parsley, green leaves, no flowers at all, oh, they were so angry. They tore at those leaves until they got ragged all around the edges. And from that moment on, things went from bad to worse for that couple. Well, the parsley withered and died, and everything else that they tried to plant, it died as well. And the milk turned sour, and things kept breaking, and oh, it was bad luck all around. For you never, ever want to get on the bad side of the good neighbors, the pixie folk. Eventually, that couple moved away. But they say in Devon that if you are ever considering digging up a tulip bed, that first you should double check and watch and see if those tulip blossoms last an unusually long time, and if they have a sweet perfume. Because if they do, they are probably pixie cradles, and it would go better for you if you did not dig them up. This is a perfect time of year for that story because tulips are coming up. So one thing that you can do with this story is to go outside. Sniff the tulips that you see. Do they have an aroma? Are any of them sweet smelling? It's probably a rare one that you will find, but oh, mark where that is. Maybe it's a pixie cradle. Another thing you can do with this story, that's something you can do inside, is to make a tulip with some origami. This is really simple origami. And you need is a piece of paper, a square of paper, maybe about 1 inch or 2 inches square. And if you don't have colored paper that size, which you may not, a piece of, this is an old calendar or a piece of wrapping paper, you can make a square really easily. Find the colored edge that you want to use and make sure it's a straight edge. Just fold it in like a triangle and cut around that triangle. Like that. And you've got the start of your tulip. The next thing you need to do is just take those 2 bottom points of the triangle and come up. Just fold them up. You can decide how your flower is going to look, but you want the points to come out to the side of the middle point to make a little tulip. And with a little bit of glue or tape, if you want to put it on a piece of paper or a card, make a card, and take some markers or crayons and draw a stem and flowers, you could make a really pretty picture or card and Sunday is Mother's Day. Just a thought. I hope you enjoyed this story today. We'll see you next time, story friends. Bye.